So I think we need to operationalize what we're going to teach the next generation. Maybe our generation isn't really rescuable.
The collapse has started, and it's causing big problems. Everything is falling apart, and we're in trouble. Our situation is getting worse. It's like a building breaking down. We see signs of a complete breakdown happening. Our systems are failing, and chaos is taking over. It's a mess, and we're struggling. So, yeah, the collapse is happening right before our eyes, and we can't ignore it. We gotta act quickly to prevent more damage. This is a critical moment, and we gotta face reality. The world is collapsing, and we are in for a tough time. We witness a major disaster affecting everybody. The damage is widespread, and there is no easy fix. We gotta come together and find solutions before it's too late. The collapse is a wake-up call. We are in for a difficult journey, and yeah, the signs are clear. We can't underestimate them. It is time to find a better future.
I think it's clear that the level of autonomic arousal that's associated with emotions, either very high or very low, very happy or very sad, very anxious or very angry, clouds our judgment. They were designed to push us along certain behavioral paths, but they've grown in importance in the last few years. And we could get into a discussion about how social media marketing are designed to capture these very deep limbic aspects of ourselves, and they are. But what's amazing and important is that everybody has a forebrain. Some people, it seems, is more developed than others, but everybody has one, and we have this capacity for what we call top-down control, which is the ability to intervene in our own feeling states and our own action states, and to set some rigor and some real clear marks that we're out to achieve. And I think it's going to start with the generation that's very plastic right now.
Yeah.
Most parents are afraid of stressing their kids because they don't want to, again, I went to a high school where kids, literally gun high school, in the last 10 years, kids have, there've been over a dozen, train track suicides. So those are kids that are committing suicide for different reasons, but a lot of them is because they just feel too much pressure. So obviously we can't pressure kids beyond their capacity to regulate. But the idea that all of our internal states should be driven by external things, that's a foolish misstep also. So I think we need to operationalize what we're going to teach the next generation. Maybe our generation isn't really rescuable, but maybe the next generation is. And if they understand that there's some concepts that sound a little mushy, like gratitude or mindfulness or these kinds of things. But as long as they understand that, for instance, gratitude, which we didn't really touch on, involves a whole other neurotransmitter reward system in the brain, the serotonin system, which buffers us against injury. It can improve wound repair. It can allow us to lean back into these high stress regimes. Learning and, kids learning how to toggle their nervous system back and forth between highly duration, path, outcome, focused states of trying to improve and learn, and then learning how to really relax and chill out and enjoy and be socially connected, because it will allow them to ratchet back in and focus with extreme depth. I think in doing that, we might not get every child to learn how to do that, but if we can distribute that information widely enough, if we can get that information out there, I really believe that at least a subset of those kids will grow up to be the leaders that our species really needs in order to get through this next filter. And right now we're feeling the stringency of that filter. And I think our level of autonomic dysregulation as a species, the fact that we're here right now, says, okay, here's the task. Are you guys gonna figure yourselves out? You got this forebrain. My dog doesn't have the forebrain I've got. Yeah. He can't figure it out, but we can work this out. And it'll involve technologies like devices to measure how we're doing, maybe some machines to guide that. That's a different discussion, but I think it's entirely possible. And I think that's the evolutionary pressure that we're in right now. And I think that the next generation, if they can hear about it and learn about it, is gonna meet that demand. Well, I think it's clear that most people, young or old, are content to be passive consumers and spend out their dopamine doing essentially meaningless activities and consuming food and consuming air and light that is basically damaging to themselves. And I don't think they care. I think our species, let's be fair, our species is probably divided into those that are really going to try and maximize on this gift of neuroplasticity, right? We're the only species that has neuroplasticity throughout the lifespan, and that neuroplasticity in childhood lasts as long as it does as a function of our total lifespan. It's incredible. So we were gifted this, and I think some people leverage it and take advantage of it, and other people don't. And I think we need to accept that we're not going to get everybody. But what we need to do is attach the reward systems of society, financial, socioeconomic, et cetera, to the kinds of behaviors that is going to give rise to people that can lead us into the next 100 years and 200 years. Now, that is not saying, do away with monetary systems, or actually the opposite. I think that once people start to realize that you're high-performing elite military, you're high-performing athlete, you're high-performing academics, you're high-performing business people, they actually have practices that they use to regulate themselves in order to not just perform better, but sleep better. And not just to sleep better, but to listen better. Not just listen better, but incorporate ideas that allow them into states of creativity and states of mind that really lead to new and exciting ways that humans can interact. And many people will just be consumers of everything they produce. As you can probably tell, I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
I have to be, because otherwise I can't justify the work that we're doing. But I think that there's so much interest now in psychology and the brain and the self, in physical fitness, which, I think it's fair to say is inextricably linked to mental fitness. And the fact that people are so curious about what other people are doing and what are the paths to success, and what are the resources for trauma and addiction. I think there's been a kind of swarm of information. It's been hard to sort through, but I think 2020 is our is our sort of call. I keep calling it a call to arms, and because I guess I do feel that way. It's very serious. This is serious business, and this is the time for us and the next generation to step up and to lead people toward a place where we can function better, and where the next generation will reflexively function better. That's that beauty of early childhood, is that if some of this stuff is taught and passed off, it's not gonna be perfect, but there'll be a generation of people coming up that will naturally understand stress and agitation as taking them off their game and leading to bad decisions, and will make the appropriate adjustments. And there are people that read David's book and your book and will see the possibility of doing something differently with a terrible childhood or a brutal addiction. And I think we need more stories of success. I think it's easy to look out there and see all the things that are going wrong, and we need to keep paying attention to those, but we need these beacons that draw people forward. And I say that from a place of experience. I mean, I used to have to find it in books in the bookshelf. There was no online back then, or in mentors, and you have to forage. I think kids, they have to have that foraging capacity. They can't just sit there and wait for it to rain on them, or for a parent to dump it on them. But I trust that they're out there and that they're gonna figure it out. I have a kind of no acronym rule, so I don't like embedding things in a lot of complex language. Sometimes I have to use an acronym, but teach people a little bit about how their brain works, how it interfaces with psychology. Everyone's got different goals and purposes in the world, but that scientists are normal people, and that hopefully science has something, I think, really science has something to offer, but it's not gonna happen if I'm vaulted in my lab or my papers are read by the 12 people that care enough to read the paper start to finish.
Right.
So I'm doing it. There are others out there, of course. David Sinclair's doing it. Sachin Panda's doing it. I'm trying to recruit more people from the scientific community to do this. I think it's our responsibility. You paid for it. It's your tax dollars. There's a tremendous cost to doing science that is not often discussed, but I don't really consider it an option. I consider it my obligation, and I'm going to keep going. So these very unusual brain states are potentially hazardous if people can't return from them.
This video focuses on how the brain and body are connected when it comes to stress and emotions. It talks about the history of stress, emphasizing that it's always been a part of human life. Always.
Yeah, so non-sleep deep rest, NSDR, is an acronym that I coined because it encompasses a lot of practices that are not meditation per se.
The video provides insights into how the body responds immediately to stress, with specific brain cells being activated and physical changes taking place.
I don't have any problem with buffering cortisol a little bit in the short term, so doing that for a week or two, but I wouldn't suggest that people suppress their cortisol
long-term unless there's a real clinical need to do that. Long-term being longer than 2 weeks.
The video also discusses the power of breath control techniques in managing stress. It explains how deep inhalations and long exhalations can have very, very positive effects on the body. Additionally, it explores the concept of the physiological sigh and how it can quickly reduce stress levels.
NSDR is immensely powerful. It's zero cost. And one of the reasons I'm such a fan of people doing it is that most people don't stick to a meditation practice. There have also been a few cases, you might find this interesting. There's a book by Scott Carney. I forget what it's called. I think it's called The Transcendence Trap or something. I'm going to have that title wrong.
The importance of nasal breathing is highlighted for various reasons, including its positive impact on facial appearance and preventing infections. Huberman also delves into the negative effects of long-term chronic stress on the brain and the body.
The practice that for me has really helped reduce stress and allowed me to fall asleep more easily and control my state of mind late in the evening is this practice that some people call yoga nidra, which literally means yoga sleep. And that practice of taking 20 or 30 minutes a day, and it doesn't have to be done every day.
It discusses how chronic stress can affect memory, contribute to conditions like Alzheimer's disease, schizophrenia, and addiction. Dr. Huberman emphasizes the significance of social connections and feeling connected to others and mitigating the negative effect of chronic stress.
And so the other thing that we know is extremely powerful for neuroplasticity to build up this capacity for focus and work is, or neuroplasticity of any kind, is what's called non-sleep deep rest. I call it NSDR, to just distinguish it from meditation and other things.
It mentions that the stress hormone cortisol can suppress melatonin, which affects your sleep. He advises against high-dose melatonin supplements.
And really allowing the mind to enter one of these pseudo-sleep states. We know from work in my laboratory and work that I'm doing with David Spiegel's laboratory, as well as work from other labs, that that state of shallow nap or shallow sleep done in waking allows the brain to, and the person, to get better at turning off their thoughts and falling asleep in the evening.
The video briefly mentions supplements like theanine and ashwagandha, highlighting their potential benefits in promoting relaxation and reducing anxiety. This interesting talk about how stress affects the way our body handles cholesterol, emphasizing our need to keep our cholesterol levels in balance.
One thing that I'm a big proponent of and that my lab has been studying is what I now call NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. And this is just lying down. There are some scripts that we're going to put out there soon as a free resource. There's some hypnosis scripts that my colleague David Spiegel has put out there as a free resource. But non-sleep deep rest is allowing your system to drop into states of real calm that allow you to get better at falling asleep later. And they can be very restorative for cognitive and motor function. There's at least one study out of Denmark that shows that the basal ganglia, which is an area of the brain that's involved in motor planning and action, one of these 20-minute non-sleep deep rest protocols resets levels of neuromodulators like dopamine in the basal ganglia to the same levels that they were right after a long night's sleep. So I also respectfully or semi-respectfully disagree with the idea that you can't recover lost sleep. What does that mean? I mean, that there's no IRS for sleep. So what does it mean to be in debt for sleep? If you're falling asleep during the day and you're sleepy, like you're falling asleep, that's a good sign of insomnia. It means you're not sleeping enough at night.
There are 2 papers that were published in the last 2 years from Cell Reports and Cell Press Journal, excellent journal, showing that a 20-minute non-sleep deep rest protocol after a bout of intense focus or intense attempt to learn anything, skill learning or cognitive learning, accelerates plasticity by about 50%. So you are learning faster, much faster, and retention of that information lasts much longer. And that's because these are sleep-like states. And we know that neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change in response to experience, is triggered by high focus, by deliberate periods of very high focus. But the actual rewiring of neurons, the formation of new synapses and the reordering of the circuitry that leads to that skill or that cognitive ability becoming reflexive, that happens in states of deep rest. And non-sleep deep rest, NSDR, whether it's hypnosis or yoga nidra or a shallow nap of about 20, 30 minutes, those things will all accelerate learning. Yeah, so non-sleep deep rest, NSDR, is an acronym that I coined because it encompasses a lot of practices that are not meditation per se, but that bring the brain and body into a state of relaxation and focus. So hypnosis is one variant of NSDR. There are other variants of NSDR. You can just look these up and you'll find them. And I think that they've caught on, and that the CEO of Google is an avid practitioner of NSDR, because it has this amazing ability to reset your energy levels and focus. Whereas with meditation, many people find meditation hard. And part of the reason they find it hard is that it requires focus. NSDR is a state which is very calm and relaxing. You don't have to work too hard. You're just listening to a script. Whereas most forms of meditation, not all, but most forms of meditation involve cranking up the activity in your prefrontal cortex and trying to see your thoughts as opposed to thinking your thoughts, or focus on your breath, but then third-personing yourself in some respect. And that's work. And so many people who meditate quite intensely feel more exhausted. Now, that doesn't mean that meditation doesn't have any utility, but it's distinctly different than NSDR. And I think that people are working, certainly the CEO of Google, I have to imagine, is working very hard and using his forebrain. If he's going to have 20 or 30 minutes to take a break, he should, and I think this is what he's doing, he should go out for a jog and not listen to anything and just kind of let his mind wander, or sit there in a chair and just zone out, or do NSDR. The problem is people are not that good at shifting states. We are all actually pretty good at, even people with severe ADHD, we did an episode about this, can become hyper-focused on things that they actually enjoy. But those periods of deep rest allow you to consolidate the material much more quickly and more deeply. And then you mentioned that there's sometimes also a period in the afternoon. So definitely nourish, take care of your email, take care of your social connections. These are important things to be able to continue to do work. NSDR is terrific at allowing people to learn to shift their state. And I actually would venture to argue that part of the value of meditation and exercise is the actual state that you get into in deep meditation or exercise. But just as valuable is the transition that you have to take yourself through from one state of mind to the other and then back again. When I look, David Goggins, he always seems to come up, but because he represents so many important things: drive, determination, override of emotional state, going from being a 300-pound plus person to a fit person through. He's never revealed anything substantial about what he ate or what he didn't eat. He basically says, like, listen, run a lot, eat less, right? Yeah. But what's remarkable is so much of what he says is about those transitions, about taking oneself from a state of, I don't want to scruffing oneself and like you're going to do it anyway. And then being able to carry that into regular life, so to speak. But I know at least one person who came back from one of these long extended meditation retreats and wasn't able to shift their state back into one that was functional in regular life. And that book includes a very dramatic story. I don't want to give it away in case people check out the book, but Scott told the story to me directly once, where someone feels they've reached enlightenment, and then so these very unusual brain states are potentially hazardous if people can't return from them. Unless you're sleep deprived, you're going to stay out of REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. If you're sleep deprived, you'll drop right into it. If you've ever traveled and you're really jet lagged, you go to the hotel, you lay down for 1 second, all of a sudden you're just like, you're in a psychedelic dream, which can be pretty great too. I try and do a couple of things. First of all, when I was a kid, I had a little bit of a grunting tic. When I was 5 or 6, I would feel this buildup of tension in my throat, and I would do this grunting tic. If I get very tired, I start to do it still. We actually know that this is related to these basal ganglia circuits for go, no go. You've got an accelerator and a brake, basically, in your neural circuitry.
Exercise also plays a crucial role in brain health. So by regularly moving your body, you improve blood flow, which in turn benefits your brain's functionality and helps it age gracefully. Incorporating a nutritious diet is another vital step.
You know, the phrase three-dog night originates, three-dog night, that phrase originates because it used to be that people would sleep with 3 dogs in order to stay warm.
Really?
Yeah, actual animals.
I never heard
you need
this
3
one.
of them in order to stay warm. Yeah, animals used to be for work, not for pets. So eventually, now they're bred to basically be like there as little. It's like now, especially in New York, I feel like dogs are it's like they're like an accessory.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which I don't like because I'm a huge animal lover. I don't like when people, because I need to see people take really good care of animals. When I see animals that are badly taken care of, there's this part of me that wants to steal them. And give them away to
like
people.
The guy's pushing the fucking dog in the stroller. Have you seen that? That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Oh, that's all
depriving an animal of its ability to walk.
It's the craziest thing.
Yeah. Homeless people actually are some of the best pet owners. Have you ever seen the way, like how obedient their pets can be compared to some of the rich people in major cities?
Fucking
pit
bulls.
The way that their dogs can't behave. They got these cavapoos that go crazy. Well, the cavapoos are pretty mellow,
but whose dogs can't behave. I wonder.
But you can also, but I do think people do like different biological shapes. People like different shapes.
Foods rich in fruits, vegetables, and grains provide the essential nutrients that your brain needs to maintain its well-being. Adequate sleep is equally important. During sleep, your brain effectively eliminates harmful waste that could otherwise damage its cells, contributing to optimal brain health. Effectively managing stress is another key factor. When your stress levels are high, that can negatively impact your brain's performance.
The short answer is the body has a huge and profound influence on our mind. And the reason is that we often talk about the brain, and we think the brain. The brain is important, but the brain and the spinal cord, which makes up what we call the central nervous system, are extensively connected with the body, and the body is extensively connected with the brain and spinal cord.
So the spinal cord is connected to the brain.
That's right.
The back. It comes up the neck.
That's right.
And the actual nerves are connected inside of your brain.
That's
right. Go all the way down to lower back?
Yeah. Yeah, so basically we are a big tube, or our nervous system is a big tube. So your brain obviously is the thing that's shaped like more or less like this, and then the spinal cord extends off the back, and all that is housed in skull, except for two pieces of the brain, which are the eyes, which are actually two pieces of the brain that are outside the skull.
The eyes are a part of the brain.
They are absolutely a part of the brain. They are central nervous system. So it's eyes, brain, and spinal cord.
They're all connected.
They're all connected.
So if you took that out of the body, let's say, they would all be connected in some way.
They're contiguous, as we say. They're just one unit.
They're one piece.
That's right. And when sometimes they get challenged, people say the eyes aren't part of the brain. And, well, then that means that the spinal cord is part of the brain too. And I want to be really clear. This is not semantics. There is a genetic program that ensures that early in development, during the first trimester, when we were all in our mother's bellies, the retinas, the neural retinas and eyes were deliberately pushed out of the skull. And the reason you have those eyes outside your skull is so that you can evaluate things at a great distance from you, right? Because otherwise everything would have to be in contact with you. Other animals do this mainly using smell. We are very visually driven. So a lot of our genome is devoted to vision and understanding what's going on at a distance from us. And that's afforded us a huge evolutionary advantage.
I'll have to pick two.
Let's do both then.
Yeah, the two are movement. Really changed the way that I train and exercise to some extent. And actually my whole philosophy on what's possible in terms of training and how to incorporate it into a week in a way that really works to build strength and endurance and feel really good in one's body all the time. And then the other one is relationships, which probably reflects my place in life, where I'm 47 now. I've chosen to delay having a family, but that's a primary focus. But also having done a lot of personal work, toward my mid 40s, I thought I was quote unquote there. And then realizing that
it's a trap door.
It's a trap door. And then realizing that I guess here again, I'll use language that Paul uses, which is that there were some unresolved core conflicts. And this idea of core conflicts is really, I think, the most appropriate way to put the important psychological stuff that people need to work through. Everyone has them. Many people have trauma. Not everyone has trauma, but as defined as an event that fundamentally changes the way that your nervous system works such that you function less well in some or many domains of life. Again, I robbed that definition from Paul Conti, and I'm far less eloquent than he is in delivering it. But realizing that there's still some core conflicts that I needed to resolve, and I'm going whole hog on that, and it's been interesting to say the least. Yeah, so non-sleep deep rest, NSDR, is an acronym that I coined because it encompasses a lot of practices that are not meditation per se, but that bring the brain and body into a state of relaxation and focus. So hypnosis is one variant of NSDR. There are other variants of NSDR. You can just look these up and you'll find them. And I think that they've caught on, and that the Google, the CEO of Google is an avid practitioner of NSDR, because it has this amazing ability to reset your energy levels and focus. Whereas with meditation, many people find meditation hard. And part of the reason they find it hard is that it requires focus. NSDR is a state which is very calm and relaxing. You don't have to work too hard. You're just listening to a script. Whereas most forms of meditation, not all, but most forms of meditation involve cranking up the activity in your prefrontal cortex and trying to see your thoughts as opposed to thinking your thoughts, or focus on your breath, but then third personing yourself in some respect. And that's work. And so many people who meditate quite intensely feel more exhausted. Now, that doesn't mean that meditation doesn't have any utility, but it's distinctly different than NSDR. And I think that people are working, certainly the CEO of Google, I have to imagine, is working very hard and using his forebrain. If he's going to have 20 or 30 minutes to take a break, he should, and I think this is what he's doing, he should go out for a jog and not listen to anything and just kind of let his mind wander, or sit there in a chair and just zone out, or do NSDR. The problem is people are not that good at shifting states. We are all actually pretty good at, even people with severe ADHD, we did an episode about this, can become hyper-focused on things that they actually enjoy. Because and most of the drugs designed to treat ADHD are drugs that increase the levels of dopamine. So when you like something, there's dopamine release and you can focus. It's when you don't like something that's hard to focus. Shifting states is hard. I'm sure you've experienced this if you've ever been in deep research or podcasting, and then all of a sudden you go for a run, you probably spend the first third of that run thinking. And then in the middle third, you're kind of, that thinking is fractured a bit. And then in the final third is where you finally get to relax, because the brain doesn't shift states very quickly. We can go from sleep to wakefulness quickly. We can go from wakefulness to sleep quickly, but we don't shift between different states of consciousness like a step function, except in rare cases, right? Fear is one.